In world history, there are four great civilizations considered the cradle of the modern world: China, Egypt, India, and Mesopotamia. Among them, Mesopotamia is often regarded as one of the oldest civilizations, on par with Egypt. So what is interesting about this civilization? Let's explore it in the article below. Unlike China or Rome, which initially started as small ethnic groups but gradually assimilated surrounding peoples, Mesopotamia, on the other hand, was a land of many different ethnic groups. At times, one group would rise to power, only to gradually decline and be replaced by another. However, the cultures of these groups shared many similarities in customs, traditions, and legends. The most prominent among them was the Sumerian civilization, a collection of city-states along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Akkad was one of the oldest empires in human history, while the city-state of Babylon and the Assyrian Empire were infamous for their brutality. Mesopotamia, true to its name, was the land between the two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. To the north of Mesopotamia lay arid deserts, while the south was a vast marshland. This unique landscape led the ancients to call the region Burinan, meaning the Great Flood. There was often a distinction between Upper Mesopotamia in the north and Lower Mesopotamia in the south. Upper Mesopotamia stretched from the headwaters of the Euphrates and Tigris down to northern Iraq, while Lower Mesopotamia extended from northern Iraq to the Persian Gulf, including Kuwait and parts of western Iran. Interestingly, Mesopotamia had limited metal resources, making agricultural products its primary trade goods. As a result, the climate had a significant impact on people's lives. In Mesopotamian mythology, many major gods were associated with natural phenomena such as wind, rain, and storms. The supreme god Enlil, for example, was a storm deity who once sought to exterminate humanity simply because they annoyed him. This reflects the unpredictability and danger of Mesopotamian nature. Additionally, the flat terrain, with few hills and a lack of natural barriers, made the region vulnerable to invasions by nomadic tribes. Consequently, Mesopotamian history was marked by constant upheaval. As a fertile land, Mesopotamia was well suited for growing grapes, olives, barley, and various other fruits. The hot and humid climate, along with an abundance of food, provided favorable conditions for people's livelihoods. From May to October, the rising river waters brought nutrient-rich silt, which enriched the soil but also caused floods and droughts. Despite these challenges, many people continued to settle in Mesopotamia, making it a region where various ethnic groups interacted and merged. Mesopotamian society was divided into 6 main classes. At the top was the king, followed by priests and scholars who were supported by the ruler. Below them were merchants, craftsmen, and farmers. The lowest class consisted of slaves, who were often prisoners of war. In the early periods of Sumerian civilization and the Akkadian Empire, agriculture was the backbone of the economy. People built complex irrigation systems to support the cultivation of staple crops and fruit trees. In addition, they raised various livestock such as sheep, cattle, and donkeys, as well as poultry like ducks and geese, while also engaging in fishing. Families in Mesopotamian society were typically patriarchal and polygamous, but all children had inheritance rights, not just the eldest son. Over time, the slave class grew and became a significant part of society, though free farmers remained the largest social group. Initially, women in Mesopotamia had many rights, but society gradually became more patriarchal. Councils of elders, which once included both men and women, were replaced by a centralized monarchy and the rule of kings. However, women still retained the right to own property and could divorce if they had a legitimate reason. By the Babylonian period, Mesopotamia's economy had grown significantly. Agriculture remained the backbone, but trade expanded on a larger scale. Agricultural products were exchanged with foreign lands via sea and land routes, bringing in metals such as copper and iron. Handicrafts also flourished, leading to the construction of architectural works such as palaces, tombs, jewelry, textiles, and bronze tools. During the Assyrian period, the economy did not develop as strongly due to harsh natural conditions. The Assyrians focused on livestock farming, hunting, and the extraction of timber and stone. After expanding their territory, they used wealth from conquered lands to build temples and grand structures. Under Assyrian rule, imperial subjects and even foreigners had opportunities to attain high positions in the government. Nevertheless, the primary social structure remained centered around families and tribes living near their agricultural and pastoral lands. One of the most remarkable achievements of Mesopotamian civilization was astronomy. During the Babylonian period, Mesopotamians developed a conceptual understanding of the universe and identified 5 other planets in the solar system: Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. They were also able to predict solar and lunar eclipses and established the lunar calendar. Their calendar was later refined into the lunisolar calendar, which eventually led to the development of astrology and divination. The Mesopotamians also made significant advancements in medicine, with anatomy being one of their most developed fields. However, their medical practices were still heavily influenced by religion. Another significant field of advancement was mathematics. The Mesopotamians were pioneers in mathematics, being the first to develop the sexagesimal base 60 system. They calculated circumferences, discovered the value of pi, developed a positional number system, and formulated basic arithmetic operations. They even devised methods for solving right-angled triangles long before Pythagoras. These legacies were later inherited by other civilizations, such as the Greeks and the Persians. Mesopotamia, along with Egypt, was one of the first civilizations to develop art in a comprehensive manner. One of their most outstanding achievements was the Ishtar Gate in Babylon. This gate was a double structure with walls decorated with blue glazed bricks, standing 15 meters tall and with foundations reaching 14 meters deep. To this day, the Ishtar Gate remains one of the most impressive surviving monuments of Babylonian civilization. Mesopotamian art was often expressed through clay sculptures and reliefs. Although many artworks have been lost to time, some have survived, such as the Lioness and Kuranan, a sculpture combining the features of a woman and a lion, dating back thousands of years. Mesopotamian sculptures often focused on male figures, particularly kings, characterized by long beards and large eyes. Relief art was also highly popular and was used to decorate stone stelas, prayer offerings, and victory monuments. During the Assyrian period, large-scale artworks were created, depicting detailed scenes of war, hunting, and massive protective statues of guardian deities. Mesopotamians were also among the first in the world to systematically plan urban settlements. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the city of Uruk is described as a magnificent and prosperous place, featuring gardens, markets, temples, and towering city walls. The primary building materials were reeds, stone, wood, bricks, and mud. For grand structures such as palaces, they also used precious stones and decorative bricks for religious purposes. A unique architectural achievement of the Mesopotamians was the ziggurat, stepped towers resembling the pyramids of Egypt. The Mesopotamians believed that the gods resided at the top of the ziggurats. As a result, only priests and those in power were allowed to ascend them. Ziggurats were not only places of worship, but also symbols of authority and the connection between humans and the divine. The earliest known language of Mesopotamia was Sumerian, followed by Semitic languages. Both represented the most prominent ethnic groups in the region. During the rule of the Akkadian Empire, the Akkadian language became widely used, but Sumerian remained favored in administration, literature, and religious practices. The Sumerian language used cuneiform script, with triangular-tipped styluses used to carve symbols onto wet clay. It was not until the reign of King Sargon that syllabic writing became widely adopted, leading to increased literacy. Another significant achievement of Mesopotamian culture was the creation of the Code of Hammurabi, consisting of 282 laws. This is considered one of the world's oldest legal codes and was inscribed on a basalt stele over 2 meters tall, with a base nearly 2 meters wide. The front of the stele depicts the sun god handing the laws to King Hammurabi in a solemn pose. Discovered in 1902, the stele is now carefully preserved at the Louvre Museum in France. Mesopotamian mythology held that the world was a flat disk surrounded by a great cosmic ocean, with heaven above it. They also believed that water encompassed the entire universe, and that creation emerged from this primordial sea. Like many other mythologies, Mesopotamian myths had numerous variations and contradictions due to religious changes over time. However, across the 4 major civilizations that ruled Mesopotamia, certain common themes remained. Among them, the 3 most famous creation myths were Enuma Elish, Atrahasis, and the Eridu Genesis. Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth, describes the formation of the world beginning with the primordial deities Apsu and Tiamat. Tiamat and Apsu united, giving birth to a group of divine beings known as the Agigi. Among the Agigi, the most powerful were Lamu and Lahamu, who, like their parents, mated and produced Ansar and Kisser. Ansar and Kisser, in turn, gave birth to Anu, whose grandson was Ea. The descendants of Ansar and Kisser were called the Anunnaki, the divine lineage of An. Over time, Apsu grew irritated by the noise of his descendants and decided to kill his children and grandchildren. However, Tiamat warned Ea in time, and in response, Ea killed Apsu and used his body to create a home for himself and his kin. Within Apsu's remains, E's son, the god Marduk, was born. Meanwhile, after Apsu's death, Tiamat turned against the gods. She married her own son, Kimgu, and gave him the Tablet of Destinies, thus declaring him the supreme deity. Seeing the dire situation, Ansar, who was then the leader of the divine lineage, granted power to Marduk. At the same time, Lamu and Lahamu proclaimed Marduk as the king of the Agigi gods. With his own power, Marduk overcame fear and slew Tiamat, seizing the Tablet of Destinies from Kingu. Through this, he declared himself the supreme god of the universe. From Tiamat's body, he created heaven and earth, the sun and the moon, along with the stars. The 2 rivers, Igris and Euphrates, flowed from Tiamat's eyes, while Apsu's body became the underworld. Marduk then handed the Tablet of Destinies to Ansar, as agreed, and Ansar accepted it, officially recognizing Marduk's sovereignty. Finally, Marduk created Babylon, the dwelling place of the gods. The god Ea then created humankind from the blood of Kingu. Once everything was complete, Marduk proclaimed himself king once more and ruled the entire world from the city of Babylon. Originating from the time of the Archa Empire, the story revolves around the character of the same name and the process of world creation. The tale begins with the gods, led by Enlil, the holder of the Tablet of Destinies, who, after laboring tirelessly to sustain life, created humans to take over their work. The Eridu creation myth, also known as the Sumerian creation myth, begins with the monologue of the goddess Ninhursag Ninthu, who gave birth to humanity. Although the opening passages are missing, it is clear that Ninthu was astonished at how humans transitioned from a nomadic lifestyle to building a civilization. Seeing their progress, Ninthu began planning to grant kingship to humanity. However, after this event, Enlil, the supreme god, decided to drown all of humanity, believing them to be too noisy. Fortunately, the god Enki warned a priest named Ziusudra about Enlil's intentions. Ziusudra then built several boats to save himself and all other living beings. As we can see, the Eridu creation myth can be considered one of the earliest texts in the world that describe a great flood, which likely influenced the later story of Noah in the Bible. The tale of Enlil drowning humanity may serve as a reflection of the unpredictable natural conditions of Mesopotamia. In addition to the 3 creation stories mentioned above, the Mesopotamians had many other creation myths, such as the Sumerian myth, which describes Namu. The ocean goddess Namu gave birth to An, the god of the sky, and Ki, the goddess of the earth, thus creating the world. The genealogy of Anu describes Duri and Dari, the deities representing eternal time, who also played a role in the creation of the world. Meanwhile, the genealogy of Elu mentions that the earth gods Enki and Ninki were actually the ones who created the world. The genealogy of Elu later influenced the genealogy of Anu, leading to the formation of a new version. Mesopotamian mythology includes numerous minor deities, but the most prominent among them is the group of 7 gods who determine fate. They are the 7 most powerful gods among the Anunnaki, namely Anu, Ishtar, Elu, Ea, Ninhursag, Nana, and Shamash. Among them, Nana is the father of Ishtar and Shamash. He is the god representing the moon and the patron of the cities of Ur and Haran. However, Nana is not the leader of the gods. That position belongs to Elu, the patron god of Nippur, who represents storms, wind, and the land, as well as serving as the ideal model for kings. Ea, also known as Enki, is the god of creation, knowledge, and magic. He is regarded as the protector of humanity and the world and plays a crucial role in the Eridu creation myth. Ea himself is also the patron god of the city-state of Eridu. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, he was responsible for creating Enkidu to challenge the hero Gilgamesh. At another time, Ea created Satu to defeat Ishtar. Legend has it that Ea had a rivalry with his sister, Ninhursag, as both sought to become the 3rd greatest deity after Anu and Elu. However, some myths depict them as husband and wife by referring to Damkini's wife as a title for Ninhursag. Another interesting detail is that Ea has an alternate version, Enki, as previously mentioned, despite sharing the same name. However, while Ea is the god of wisdom, Enki is the primordial god of the earth. Ishtar is the goddess of love, war, and power. Her worship dates back to the Sumerians and continued into the Assyrian period. She was known as the Queen of Heaven and was the patron goddess of the Ina temple in the city-state of Uruk. Many scholars believe that Ishtar was not originally a Sumerian deity, but was assimilated into their mythology during the Sumer-Akkadian period. She represents the planet Venus and was married to Dumuzid, the god of shepherds, fertility, growth, and decay. However, Dumuzid was sent to the underworld each year to take Ishtar's place. When he returned annually, he and Ishtar would reunite in passion, restoring life to the land once more. The myth of Dumuzid explains the seasonal changes in Mesopotamia and may have later inspired the Greek myth of Persephone. Besides Ishtar, there was also Shamash, her twin brother, and the god of the sun, justice, morality, and truth. He was a seeker of justice and the protector of travelers, soldiers, merchants, and sailors. It is said that he was very close to Ishtar and possessed knowledge of both the future and dreams. Through his children, Mamu and Zaviku, Shamash granted dreams to foretell the future. Ereshkigal was the goddess and ruler of Urkala, the underworld of Mesopotamian mythology. She was the older sister of Ishtar. While some versions of the myth describe Ereshkigal as an alternate form of Ishtar, her rule over the underworld stemmed from her being kidnapped and imprisoned there. Later, Kor, the being that had captured her, engaged in a great battle with Enki. After the battle, Ereshkigal took the opportunity to claim dominion over the underworld. Perhaps the most well-known story about Ereshkigal is her confrontation with her sister Ishtar. One day, Ishtar descended into the underworld to assert her control over all aspects of existence, heaven, earth, and the underworld. Neti, the gatekeeper of the underworld, obeyed the queen's orders and forced Ishtar to pass through the 7 gates of the underworld. In Mesopotamian mythology, Marduk was the son of the water god Enki and the goddess Damkina. He was the divine protector of order, justice, magic, and fairness, as well as storms and agriculture. A young and immensely powerful god, Marduk was recognized as the king of the gods. Because of this, the Greeks later considered him to be the Mesopotamian counterpart of Zeus. He was also associated with the planet Jupiter, the largest celestial body known to the Mesopotamians. However, during the reign of Hammurabi, Marduk was not yet the supreme god. That position belonged to Enlil. Instead, Marduk was seen as a mediator between the gods and humanity. Beyond seizing kingship and defeating Tiamat, Marduk was also recognized as the god of agriculture and fertility. The distinction between Marduk as the king of the gods and Marduk as a local agricultural deity may stem from Babylon's transformation from a small city-state into a powerful and expansive empire. After the decline of Babylon, Marduk was gradually overshadowed by the Assyrian god Ashur. In works such as the Epic of Era, Marduk, once the bringer of order and stability, became a source of chaos and was eventually overthrown. Alongside Quenu, Tiamat also gave birth to a host of monstrous creatures, Basmu, a venomous serpent, Uasumgalu, a massive dragon with 3 horns, a serpent-like head for legs and wings, Mushmahu, a 7-headed serpent, Mushushu, a reptilian creature with the body of a serpent and tall feline-like legs, Lamu, a tall, hairy man, Ugalu, a lion-headed monster, Uridimu, a half-man, half-lion being, Girdabluulu, a scorpion-human hybrid, Umadabrutu, a condensed storm, Kanunu, a merman, and Kushariku, another merman. Tiamat's story is perhaps one of the earliest versions of the Chauskampf, the primordial battle between a hero and a monstrous figure from the underworld or the abyss of the sea. This later may have inspired the battle between Zeus and Typhon in Greek mythology, or the creation story in the Bible. Tiamat's death can be interpreted as the transition of human society from a matriarchal to a patriarchal system. Among Mesopotamian mythology, perhaps the most famous story is the Epic of Gilgamesh. This epic emerged between 2001 BCE and 1200 BCE and has been preserved to this day. The story begins with a vivid description of the prosperous city of Uruk, ruled by King Gilgamesh, who possessed 2/3 divine blood. At the start of the tale, Gilgamesh is portrayed as immature, spending his time fighting, wrestling, feasting, and engaging in reckless behavior. In response, the gods sent the wild man Enkidu to challenge him. However, their actions eventually angered the gods, and Enkidu fell ill and died soon after. Grieving the loss of his friend, Gilgamesh became painfully aware of the inevitability of death and embarked on a quest for immortality. In the end, he failed in his pursuit and returned to Uruk. Just as in the beginning of the story, Gilgamesh once again describes the splendor of Uruk to the reader, bringing the tale full circle. Besides conveying themes of personal growth and warnings against tyranny and the abuse of power, the Epic of Gilgamesh stands out by not portraying its hero as a flawless figure, unlike many later epics. Besides conveying themes of personal growth and warnings against tyranny and the abuse of power, the Epic of Gilgamesh stands out by not portraying its hero as a flawless figure, unlike many later epics. The history of Mesopotamia began with small communities living along rivers stretching from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf. Over time, they entered the Ubaid period, which lasted from 6500 BCE to 3800 BCE. During this period, the people of Mesopotamia developed agriculture and culture. Thanks to surplus food production, they had the conditions to advance craftsmanship, establish taxation systems, and manage food supplies, leading to the emergence of early states. As a result, towns and cities began to appear, with Uruk standing out as a major center featuring an administrative system and workshops funded by temples. Unlike later depictions, Uruk was not ruled by a king, but by a priest or a group of priests, highlighting the significant influence of religion and culture on Mesopotamian society. Below the priests were officials, scholars, and scribes who ensured the smooth operation of society, while the lowest class consisted of farmers and fishermen. This period also saw the invention of writing, initially used for recording taxes and food distribution. From 3500 BCE onward, Uruk's influence expanded, driving urbanization and leading to the establishment of colonies under its control, making it the dominant power in the region. This period is known as the Uruk era. However, after a time of turmoil possibly due to civil war, nomadic incursions, or revolts by colonies, Uruk gradually declined, making way for other emerging powers. Centuries after Uruk's weakening, the Sumerians began building their own independent cities, such as Umar, Eridu, and Nippur. Each of these cities functioned as an independent city-state with its own patron deity, similar to the city-states of ancient Greece. These city-states were centered around urban hubs and surrounded by villages that provided food supplies. The region's agricultural prosperity and wealth attracted many migrants, leading to rapid population growth. This growth created logistical pressures, resulting in wars over resources between city-states and external forces. This environment gradually transformed Mesopotamian society from an early democratic system into a monarchy, with the emergence of the Lugal or great man, a ruler who lived in a palace. However, religion remained a crucial aspect of society. Each city-state declared a patron deity, such as Inanna, the protector of Uruk, or Enlil, the protector of Nippur. The legendary king Gilgamesh may have also appeared during this period. During this time, Inshaku Shanna, a king of Uruk, temporarily unified the Sumerian civilization. However, his rule did not last long. After his death, Lugal-Zaggisi, a king from Umma, successfully unified Mesopotamia and ruled over the vassal states from Uruk, the city he had conquered, and made his new capital. During Lugal-Zaggisi's reign, a story tells of a priestess who gave birth to a baby boy and placed him in a basket, setting it adrift on the Euphrates River. The child was later adopted by Aki, a gardener for the king of Kish. As he grew up, the boy earned the king's trust and was given the position of cupbearer. However, the king of Kish later had a dream in which he was drowned by birds in a lake of blood and feared that the boy would betray him. As a result, he sent the boy to Lugal-Zaggisi. But in the end, the boy overthrew the king of Kish and became Sargon, the founder of the first empire in human history. The story of Sargon's origins was likely a political message crafted to convince the people of Akkad and Sumer that he was an extraordinary figure, a ruler with humble beginnings, unlike the wealthy elites before him. Similar to his subjects, he came from poverty. From his base in Kish, Sargon conquered the southern regions, winning more than 30 battles and gradually bringing various city-states under his control. He marched to Uruk, defeated Lugal-Zaggisi, then continued south to Lagash. Afterward, he turned back north, executed Lugal-Zaggisi, and officially established a new dynasty. Realizing that he could not immediately expand northward, Sargon focused on territorial expansion to the east and the development of trade. Around 2300 BCE, he conquered Susa, the capital of the Elamites, and expanded his empire from the Mediterranean to Lagash. This brought stability to trade and the economy, while also granting Mesopotamia access to essential resources such as copper, cotton, precious stones, silver, elephants, and buffalo. From the time of Sargon, later Mesopotamian kings often used foreign goods to showcase their power. Sargon appointed native Akkadians to governing positions and used religion to convince his subjects that the gods had granted him the empire, rather than him seizing it by force. He also entrusted powerful positions to his family members, such as making his eldest daughter a high priestess. Sargon continued to rule and maintain his authority until his death in 2079 BCE, after 56 years of reign. After his passing, his two sons, Rimish and Manishtushu, spent most of their time suppressing revolts within the empire. Under Naram-Sin, Sargon's grandson, not only were these internal rebellions successfully quelled, but he also defeated the Elamites and subdued several nomadic tribes to further consolidate the empire. Nevertheless, Naram-Sin's reign marked the last glorious period of the Akkadian Empire. After his death, the empire gradually weakened and eventually collapsed in 2154 BCE following the fall of Akkad. The Gutians, who had once been Akkad's enemies, swept into Mesopotamia and established a new dynasty around the Euphrates Valley. However, they were unable to fully control the region. A coalition of Sumerian city-states, led by Uruk, overthrew the Gutian rulers and temporarily governed Mesopotamia for a short period. Before that, Ur-Nammu, an official from the city of Ur, had overthrown Uruk and established a new dynasty, later known as the Third Dynasty of Ur. Unlike the Akkadians, this dynasty focused on consolidating and managing the empire rather than continuously expanding its territory. Dgithu, Vi tro Cian Cthe Gt Gg Dian Uafang Sang Quan Chak Gg Quian Vua. MCCD Kang Ko Niu Gi Chep Via Kuk Kwak Ni Luan Trong Gi Hoan Ne. Long Ha Vien Fat Trian MDN Mvia Thong Mg. H Thung Tagi Tiu Vadan SB. Kuk Thanfa C Tip Tic Fat Trian. Trong Ki Nung Thanfa Mgi Dien Turk Than Trung Tam Kin Ti Quan Trung. Mt Trong SB Ko Chin Loth and Quoc Babylon. However, the Ur dynasty eventually collapsed in 2004 BCE due to drought, disease, and the invasion of the Amorites, a group of nomadic people. Mesopotamia fell into chaos, torn between native forces and the Amorites. Before this, the Amorites had repeatedly attacked Mesopotamia, seizing Palestine, Syria, and large surrounding regions. Like other nomadic peoples who had arrived before them, the Amorites gradually integrated into the local communities and were assimilated within a few decades. Over time, they established numerous city-states, developing writing systems and languages that laid the foundation for the future Babylonian Empire. However, during this period, the most powerful city-states were Ibn and Lasha. During this time, Shamshi-Adad, a conqueror and military leader, expanded his power. After years in exile, he returned to his homeland of Ekalatum, defeated the Assyrians, and declared himself king of Assyria. He built a new capital called Shubat-Enlil and appointed his two sons to govern other cities.